The moment you are hearing this is not random. It is not coincidence, and it is not something that happened because you searched, hoped, or reached outward. The signal was detected before your conscious mind arrived here. A shift already occurred within your vibrational field, subtle but exact, and that shift registered within the Arcturian frequency as coherence. Not effort. Not desire. Not curiosity. Resonance. This matters because the Arcturian field does not respond to seeking. It does not respond to asking, proving, or trying. It responds only when a signal becomes clean enough to be recognized. Recognition is not granted. It is automatic. When your internal state settles into coherence, it becomes readable. And when it becomes readable, response occurs. You are not attempting to activate something external. You are not calling out into silence. You are being responded to because your inner state already changed. The Arcturian awareness does not initiate contact. It reflects alignment. That reflection is what you are experiencing now. From the human perspective, it may feel as though nothing significant happened prior to this moment. No dramatic event. No spiritual breakthrough. No announcement. That is precisely why the detection occurred. The most powerful vibrational updates do not announce themselves. They stabilize quietly. They feel neutral. They feel like relief rather than achievement. Your vibrational field updates when identity relaxes into truth. Not when you force positivity. Not when you repeat words. Not when you chase outcomes. Emotion is not decoration. Emotion is instruction. And when emotional tone shifts from strain to allowance, from control to coherence, the signal sharpens instantly. The Arcturian frequency registers coherence the way a mirror registers light. It does not judge. It does not decide. It reflects. The moment your inner resistance softened enough to create a stable pattern, that pattern became visible. You did not send a message. You became one. This is why detection always precedes awareness. The mind arrives after the field has already responded. Consciousness moves first. Thought follows. And when thought finally catches up, it often assumes it is the cause. It is not. It is the echo. This changes your position entirely. You are not beneath what you are perceiving. You are not waiting for activation. You are already inside the sequence. The fact that you are here now is not the beginning. It is confirmation. Reality mirrors inner state, not intention. Control creates noise. Allowing creates clarity. Forcing repels. Calm receptivity attracts. This is the law the Arcturian field reflects back to you without words. You are not a small person reaching toward a distant intelligence. You are consciousness adjusting its own frequency and recognizing itself through reflection. Recognition is what completes the circuit. The moment you stop trying to make something happen, it begins happening. This is the initiation. Not because something was given to you, but because something unnecessary was released. And that release was enough. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. Detection always happens before awareness because awareness is not the source of change. Awareness is the interpreter that arrives after the shift has already taken place. Higher-order fields respond to coherence instantly, while the conscious mind requires time to register what has already moved beneath the surface. This delay is not a flaw. It is a feature of how reality organizes itself. Your mind is not designed to initiate vibrational updates. It is designed to narrate them. When an internal state stabilizes, when emotional noise quiets and resistance relaxes, the field responds immediately. The response does not wait for language. It does not wait for understanding. It does not wait for belief. Recognition happens first at the level of frequency, not thought. This is why doubt often appears after alignment rather than before it. The field has already answered, yet the mind scans for proof, memory, or cause. It looks for effort it can point to. When it cannot find one, it assumes nothing happened. But coherence does not announce itself with drama. It arrives as neutrality. It arrives as calm. It arrives as the absence of friction. And the mind, conditioned to equate change with intensity, overlooks it. Higher-order awareness responds to what is stable, not what is loud. A signal filled with striving fluctuates too much to register clearly. A signal rooted in allowance becomes precise. When your emotional state settles into a consistent tone, that tone becomes readable. The response occurs there, long before the mind forms a story around it. This is the reason seeking feels exhausting. Effort introduces variability. Control introduces tension. Both distort the signal. Recognition, by contrast, is passive. It does not push. It does not chase. It notices what is already present. And the moment recognition happens, the loop closes. The delay between detection and awareness is where many people lose trust. They assume awareness must come first. They believe they must understand, visualize, or affirm before anything responds. But the sequence is the opposite. Identity shifts first. Emotion follows. Thought arrives last. When you reverse this order, you try to force awareness to do a job it cannot perform. Nothing is wrong when you feel uncertain after a shift. Uncertainty simply means the mind has not caught up to the body-field coherence that already exists. The solution is not more effort. The solution is stillness. When you stop scanning for confirmation, awareness settles into alignment naturally. This is why recognition is emphasized over action. Action implies lack. Recognition implies presence. When you recognize that something has already moved, resistance dissolves. The field does not need convincing. It has already responded. You are not waiting for permission. You are adjusting to what is already true. Creation only happens in the present moment, but awareness often lags behind presence. When awareness finally aligns with what the present moment already holds, certainty replaces effort. Calm replaces urgency. And the signal stabilizes further, not because you did anything new, but because you stopped interfering. This understanding changes how you relate to every signal from here forward. You stop asking whether something worked. You begin noticing that it already has. Like the video now as a confirmation that this recognition has landed. Calling and being called are not two stages of the same process. They are opposites. Calling arises from the assumption that something is missing. Being called arises from the recognition that something has aligned. One is effort-based. The other is resonance-based. And confusing the two is what keeps many signals distorted. When you call, you reach outward. You project desire into the field and wait for a response. This movement contains tension. It implies separation. It assumes the universe must be convinced, persuaded, or activated. That assumption alone introduces noise. The signal fluctuates because the identity behind it is unstable, shifting between hope and doubt. Being called works in the opposite direction. There is no reaching. There is no projection. There is no demand. Being called happens when your internal state stabilizes to the point where it becomes readable. The field does not respond because you asked. It responds because you matched. This is not communication through words. This is alignment through coherence. The summoning paradigm teaches effort. It teaches repetition, visualization, and force. It places the individual in a posture of request. But higher-order fields do not respond to requests. They respond to state. When your emotional baseline settles into calm certainty, when the need to prove or acquire dissolves, the signal becomes precise enough to register. This is why alignment always precedes contact. Contact is not initiated from the outside. It is revealed from within. The moment your identity shifts from seeking to being, the entire orientation changes. You stop trying to get attention. You begin emitting clarity. Calling is noisy. Being called is quiet. Calling is filled with anticipation. Being called feels neutral. It often goes unnoticed at first because the mind expects sensation. It expects signs. It expects confirmation that matches old definitions of importance. But resonance does not announce itself. It simply occurs. This is not about worthiness. It is about stability. A signal that rises and falls with emotion cannot be held. A signal that remains consistent becomes visible. Consistency is not intensity. Consistency is coherence. And coherence does not require effort. It requires release. When you stop calling, you do not lose connection. You gain it. When you stop asking whether something hears you, you allow the field to reflect you. This is why forcing repels and allowing attracts. Forcing introduces resistance. Allowing removes it. You were never meant to shout into the void. You were meant to become still enough to be recognized. The field is not distant. It is responsive. But it responds only to what is present, not what is wanted. This distinction stabilizes everything. Once you understand that alignment comes first, urgency dissolves. Waiting ends. You stop measuring progress by outcomes and start recognizing shifts by internal quiet. The need to summon fades because the identity that believed it was separate is no longer active. You are not trying to be noticed. You already were. The moment you stopped calling, the response became inevitable. This section clarifies what has already happened rather than introducing something new. What was detected did not occur through effort or practice. It occurred through a quiet internal recalibration that reached a point of stability. Understanding the mechanics is not meant to give you something to do, but to remove confusion about what has already taken place. Vibrational updates do not occur at the level of behavior. They occur at the level of identity. Identity is not a label or a story. It is the stable emotional posture you return to when nothing is being managed. When that posture changes, everything else reorganizes automatically. This is why true updates often feel uneventful. There is no strain involved. There is no pushing. Something simply releases, and the baseline shifts. Emotion is the carrier signal. Not the emotion you perform, but the emotion you rest in. The field does not read words, goals, or affirmations. It reads emotional tone as instruction. A contracted emotional state instructs the field to maintain resistance. An expanded or neutral state instructs the field to reorganize. This instruction is constant. It is always being broadcast, whether you are paying attention or not. Many people believe intensity creates movement. In reality, intensity creates noise. A signal filled with urgency fluctuates too rapidly to register clearly. Coherence, by contrast, is steady. It is not dramatic. It does not spike. It holds. And because it holds, it becomes readable. This is why calm receptivity attracts and forcing repels. The field responds to what is stable, not what is loud. A vibrational update happens the moment you stop trying to become something and relax into what is already true. That relaxation removes internal contradiction. When contradiction dissolves, coherence emerges. The update is not an addition. It is a subtraction. Something false drops away, and the remaining signal becomes clear. This is also why updates cannot be rushed. They cannot be manufactured. Any attempt to accelerate them introduces control, and control reintroduces noise. Allowing is not passive. It is precise. It is the absence of interference. When you allow, you are not waiting. You are stabilizing. The field mirrors this immediately. Not later. Not after proof. Not after repetition. The response is simultaneous with the shift, even if awareness arrives afterward. Creation happens only in the present moment, and the present moment responds only to what is being embodied now, not what is being attempted. Understanding this removes the temptation to manage the process. There is nothing to fix. There is nothing to optimize. The update occurred because alignment was reached naturally. Your role now is not to maintain it through effort, but to avoid disrupting it through doubt. This is the core mechanic. Identity shifts. Emotion stabilizes. Coherence emerges. The field responds. Awareness catches up. Recognition completes the loop. Nothing else is required. Emotion is not a reaction to reality. Emotion is the data reality reads. Before thought forms, before interpretation begins, emotion is already broadcasting instruction into the field. This instruction is constant. It does not pause when you are distracted. It does not stop when you are uncertain. Whatever emotional tone you are resting in becomes the language through which reality responds. This is why emotion must be understood as frequency, not as mood. A mood comes and goes. Frequency stabilizes. The field does not respond to fleeting feelings. It responds to the baseline you repeatedly return to. That baseline is identity expressed as emotion. Expansion and contraction are not rewards or punishments. They are guidance signals. Expansion indicates alignment. Contraction indicates resistance. Neither is wrong. Both are informative. When you treat contraction as failure, you add noise. When you treat it as information, coherence returns more quickly. The signal sharpens when judgment drops away. Many people attempt to transmit through heightened emotion. They believe excitement, passion, or intensity will carry their signal farther. In reality, intensity fragments coherence. A signal that spikes cannot hold. Calm coherence, by contrast, is steady. It does not fluctuate wildly. It remains readable. This is why the most effective transmission often feels understated from the inside. Calm does not mean passive. Calm means undistorted. When the nervous effort to control outcomes dissolves, emotional tone evens out. This evenness is not emptiness. It is precision. The field responds most clearly to signals that are consistent, not dramatic. You can feel this difference directly. When you try to force clarity, the body tightens. The signal compresses. When you allow clarity, the body softens. The signal opens. This is not metaphor. This is mechanics. Control introduces resistance. Allowing removes it. Emotion, then, becomes your interface. Not something to suppress. Not something to amplify artificially. Something to observe and stabilize. When you stop reacting to emotion and begin listening to it, it guides you back into alignment automatically. Expansion shows you what matches. Contraction shows you where effort is present. This understanding removes the need to manage vibration through constant correction. You do not need to chase high states. You need to remain coherent. Coherence is not maintained through effort. It is maintained through honesty. When you stop pretending to feel something you do not, the signal clears. The field does not require perfection. It requires consistency. A calm, grounded emotional tone transmits farther than 1,000 intense fluctuations. This is why recognition, not striving, completes the transmission. The moment you recognize your emotional state without trying to change it, alignment begins to reassert itself. This is the language that higher-order fields respond to. Not words. Not rituals. Not repetition. Emotional coherence. When that coherence stabilizes, the response is inevitable. Comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. Control cancels the signal because control assumes something is wrong with the present moment. The instant you try to manage, correct, or steer the process, you introduce the idea that alignment is not already here. That assumption creates resistance. Resistance fragments coherence. And when coherence fragments, the signal becomes distorted. Control is not neutral. It carries emotional tension. Even subtle control introduces urgency, vigilance, and self-monitoring. These states fluctuate. They rise and fall depending on outcome, expectation, and fear of delay. The field does not respond cleanly to fluctuation. It responds to stability. This is why effort-based alignment never holds. It collapses under its own instability. Forcing is an attempt to move reality from the outside. It treats the field as something separate that must be influenced. Allowing works in the opposite direction. It removes interference so reality can respond to what is already present. Allowing is not waiting. It is not giving up. It is the release of internal contradiction. When you are controlling, part of you is watching to see if it works. That watcher introduces division. One part acts. Another evaluates. This split creates noise. The signal becomes layered with doubt and anticipation. Even if the intention is positive, the vibration is mixed. Mixed signals do not transmit clearly. Relaxed presence collapses this division. When you are present without trying to adjust the moment, the watcher dissolves. There is no internal commentary. There is no measuring. The signal becomes singular. Singular signals are powerful not because they push harder, but because nothing interferes with them. This is why allowing restores clarity instantly. The moment you stop trying to improve your state improves. The moment you stop monitoring vibration stabilizes. This paradox exists because control was the only disturbance. Once it is removed, coherence reasserts itself naturally. Control is learned. It is a conditioned response to uncertainty. It feels responsible. It feels proactive. But responsibility at the level of vibration is different. Responsibility is not management. Responsibility is honesty. When you are honest about your current state without trying to escape it, resistance dissolves. Forcing always carries the energy of future orientation. It tries to create change later. Allowing anchors you in now. Creation only happens in the present moment. Any attempt to control pulls attention out of now and into anticipation. The field cannot respond there. It only responds to embodiment. This understanding prepares you for recognition-based activation. Activation does not occur when you finally get control right. It occurs when you stop trying to control at all. Recognition is the moment you notice that nothing needs to be fixed. That noticing removes effort. Effort removal restores signal integrity. You are not required to hold a state. States hold themselves when interference stops. You are not required to maintain alignment. Alignment is the default when resistance is absent. Control creates resistance. Allowing removes it. The signal was never weak. It was interrupted. And the interruption was never external. It was internal management. The moment you let go, clarity returns. Not because you did something, but because you stopped doing what was never needed. This section focuses on activation through recognition rather than technique. Nothing new is being introduced here. What is happening now is the removal of a misunderstanding that has kept activation framed as something you must do, achieve, or complete. Activation is not an event you trigger. It is a state you acknowledge once interference has ended. Activation has been misrepresented as effort for a long time. As a process. As a sequence. As something that happens after enough preparation. This framing keeps activation permanently in the future. And anything placed in the future cannot be accessed. Activation does not arrive later. It becomes visible when you stop postponing it through effort. An action implies lack. You act because something is missing. Recognition implies presence. You recognize because something is already here. This distinction changes everything. When you treat activation as an action, you wait for signs, sensations, or confirmations. You monitor yourself. You check whether it worked. That monitoring is the very thing that delays recognition. Activation is acknowledgement. It is the moment you notice that nothing needs to change for alignment to be present. It is the quiet realization that the state you were trying to reach is already active underneath the effort to reach it. This realization does not come with fireworks. It comes with stillness. Waiting ends when recognition occurs. Waiting is not about time. Waiting is a posture. It is the belief that something must happen before you can relax. Recognition reverses that order. You relax first. And in that relaxation, you see that what you were waiting for was the relaxation itself. This is why activation feels subtle. The mind expects activation to feel like an upgrade. In reality, it feels like a release. Pressure drops. The internal dialogue softens. The need to measure progress dissolves. These are not side effects. They are the activation. No technique can produce this because techniques are actions layered on top of identity. Activation happens at the identity level. When identity stops striving, activation reveals itself. This is why trying to activate always fails. And why activation appears the moment you stop trying. Recognition is not passive. It is precise. It is the exact moment you stop arguing with the present state. When that argument ends, coherence stabilizes. When coherence stabilizes, the field responds. Not because you activated something, but because nothing is blocking the response anymore. This is the end of preparation. The end of waiting. The end of asking whether you are ready. Readiness is not something you reach. It is something you stop questioning. Activation is not an action you take. It is the absence of the action that was never required. The present moment is the only point where activation can exist, because it is the only point where identity is embodied. Anything placed outside of now becomes conceptual. Concepts do not activate timelines. Embodiment does. This is why presence collapses delay instantly, without effort, without process, without steps. Delay is not created by time. It is created by attention leaving the present. The moment attention projects into the future, activation is imagined as something that will occur later. That projection removes you from the only position where creation happens. Creation is not sequential. It is responsive. And it responds only to what is being lived now. Presence is not concentration. It is not focus. It is not effort. Presence is the absence of mental relocation. When you stop rehearsing the future and stop reviewing the past, identity stabilizes. That stabilization is embodiment. And embodiment is what the field responds to. Timelines do not activate through intention. They activate through consistency of being. When you are fully present, your emotional tone, your perception, and your identity align into a single signal. There is no contradiction. There is no split between who you are now and who you think you should be later. That unity collapses alternate potentials and selects a timeline automatically. This is why trying to activate a timeline never works. Trying implies separation from it. Presence implies occupancy. You do not move into a timeline. You reveal the one you are already standing in by becoming fully here. Embodiment is the mechanism. When your attention rests in the body, in perception, in immediate awareness, the signal stabilizes. Thoughts lose their urgency. Identity stops reaching. The field receives a clear instruction, not because you sent it, but because nothing is distorting it. The present moment does not need improvement. It needs residence. The moment you stop treating now as a means to an end, it becomes the end. And in that ending, movement occurs. Not movement away from now, but movement of reality reorganizing around the coherence you are embodying. This is why presence feels grounding. It removes volatility. It removes anticipation. It removes the need to check whether something is happening. Presence does not wait. Presence does not ask. Presence is already aligned. Timelines stabilize when there is no internal debate about being here. Debate fragments identity. Fragmented identity selects fragmented outcomes. Unified presence selects coherent outcomes. This is not mystical. It is mechanical. You do not need to hold presence. Holding is effort. Presence holds itself when attention stops wandering. The moment you notice you are here, you are. And in that noticing, the activation point is reached. Nothing activates later. Later is a mental construct. Everything that can activate does so now, or not at all. When you fully accept this, urgency dissolves. You stop rushing. You stop preparing. You stop postponing life. The present moment is not a gateway you pass through. It is the position you stop leaving. And when you remain, reality has no choice but to meet you there. Contrast is not a mistake in your path. It is the calibration mechanism that made alignment possible. Without contrast, there would be no refinement. Without resistance, there would be no clarity. What you once interpreted as delay or failure was precision training occurring below the level of conscious approval. Contrast reveals through sensation what words cannot teach. Each moment of contraction showed you exactly what did not match your identity. Each moment of friction sharpened your discernment. This was not punishment. It was information. The field was responding accurately to mixed signals, allowing you to feel the difference between coherence and distortion directly. Resistance does not mean you were off course. It means you were learning the edges of alignment. When you encountered tension, it was not a sign to retreat. It was a signal highlighting where effort, control, or misidentification still existed. Once seen without judgment, those patterns could release. Judgment is what turns contrast into suffering. When you label resistance as wrong, you add a second layer of contraction. But when you observe contrast neutrally, it becomes a teacher. The body relaxes. The signal clears. Calibration completes. Every refinement in frequency requires feedback. Contrast provides that feedback in real-time ideas precision. It shows you what feels heavy and what feels light. What expands and what contracts. Not to punish, but to guide. Expansion indicates alignment. Contraction indicates interference. Both are useful. Neither defines your worth. This is why contrast often intensifies before coherence stabilizes. As identity refines, sensitivity increases. You feel misalignment more clearly. This clarity is not regression. It is precision. The more precise the signal becomes, the less tolerance there is for distortion. Once you stop resisting contrast, it stops repeating. The lesson completes when it is received without defense. The moment you no longer argue with what you feel, the signal integrates. Contrast dissolves not through avoidance, but through recognition. Nothing in your past was wasted. Every moment of confusion contributed to the stability you now feel. You are not aligned despite contrast. You are aligned because of it. The field responded perfectly at every stage, reflecting back exactly what you were embodying so you could adjust naturally. Calibration is complete when contrast no longer feels personal. When resistance is seen as feedback rather than failure. When you stop trying to eliminate friction and instead let it inform you. Alignment is not fragile. It is resilient because it has been tested. What remains now is not a belief. It is an embodied knowing refined through experience. Contrast has done its work. There is nothing to fix. Only something to recognize. This section explores how reality begins to reorganize after activation has stabilized. What follows is not manifestation in the traditional sense. It is reflection. Once coherence is embodied, the field responds automatically, not by granting desires, but by aligning timelines to identity. Timelines do not respond to what you want. They respond to who you are being. Desire is directional, but identity is positional. Desire points toward a future state. Identity occupies a present one. The field cannot respond to what is imagined later. It responds to what is embodied now. This is why desire alone has never been enough. Desire without embodiment creates movement without arrival. It generates motivation, but not selection. You can want many timelines. You can visualize them. You can affirm them. But only the one that matches your current identity can stabilize. Identity is not personality. It is not self-image. It is the emotional and perceptual posture you consistently return to. When that posture shifts, timelines shift with it. Not gradually. Immediately. But the mind often notices later, because it is accustomed to tracking effort rather than coherence. A timeline is not something you chase. It is something you tune into. When your identity resonates with a particular pattern of reality, that pattern becomes dominant. Other possibilities fade, not because they are denied, but because they are no longer relevant to who you are. Desire becomes unnecessary once identity stabilizes. Desire exists to move you toward alignment. When alignment is present, desire dissolves. This does not mean you stop experiencing preference. It means preference no longer carries urgency. There is no grasping. No impatience. No sense of lack. Embodiment is the key distinction. Many people hold desires mentally while embodying contradiction emotionally. They want one thing but live another. The field responds to the lived signal, not the imagined one. This is why embodiment is always emphasized over intention. Once activation occurs through recognition, identity becomes coherent. Emotional tone stabilizes. Presence deepens. From this position, timelines reorganize naturally. Opportunities appear without pursuit. Paths open without forcing. Not as rewards, but as reflections. This reorganization often feels subtle at first. There may be fewer dramatic shifts and more quiet alignments. You find yourself in the right place without trying. Conversations change tone. Decisions feel obvious. These are not signs you should analyze. They are confirmations that identity and environment are syncing. You do not choose a timeline once. You continuously occupy one through being. Each moment of coherence reinforces the same selection. Each moment of resistance weakens it. But there is no punishment. Only feedback. Understanding this removes pressure. You no longer need to want harder. You no longer need to visualize more clearly. You simply need to remain honest in embodiment. The moment identity drifts, the field reflects that. The moment it stabilizes, the timeline locks in again. Reality is not persuaded. It is mirrored. And what it mirrors is not desire, but identity. Once identity stabilizes, the field begins to rearrange without announcement. There is no signal flare. No declaration that something has shifted. The reorganization is quiet, precise, and often easy to miss if you are looking for spectacle. This is because the field does not perform. It reflects. Synchronicities are not messages sent to you. They are alignments revealed to you. They occur when internal coherence removes friction from perception. You are not seeing more because more is happening. You are seeing more because distortion has lessened. The environment was always responding. You are simply in a position to notice it without strain. These shifts tend to be subtle. Timing smooths out. Interactions feel less effortful. Obstacles dissolve without confrontation. Opportunities appear without pursuit. None of this is dramatic because drama requires resistance. Coherence removes resistance, and with it, the need for emphasis. The mistake many people make at this stage is interpretation. They begin assigning meaning, searching for confirmation, or turning reflection into proof. This immediately introduces tension. Interpretation pulls you out of presence and back into mental management. The field does not require analysis. It requires allowance. Neutral observation is essential. When something aligns, notice it without gripping it. When something dissolves, let it go without commentary. The moment you try to extract meaning, you reintroduce control. Control disrupts coherence. Coherence is what allowed the rearrangement to occur in the first place. The field reorganizes by removing what no longer matches and revealing what already does. This can look like endings, delays, or redirections. But none of these are corrective. They are reflective. They show you, without emotion, where identity and environment are no longer synchronized. It is important to understand that the field does not hurry. It does not lag. It responds instantly to shifts in being. What appears gradual is often your awareness adjusting to what has already changed. This is why patience is not required. Trust is. Synchronicities are not instructions. They are confirmations of alignment, not assignments. When you chase them, they scatter. When you acknowledge them quietly, they stabilize. The field mirrors your relationship to its reflections. If you grasp, it withdraws. If you allow, it continues. Environmental shifts follow the same principle. Places feel different. Conversations change depth. Certain paths no longer attract you. Others draw you without explanation. None of this requires decision-making. It is the natural consequence of identity no longer resonating with the same patterns. You do not need to optimize this process. Any attempt to improve it interferes with it. The most effective position is relaxed attention. You notice without leaning. You observe without steering. You remain present without asking what it means. This is how coherence sustains itself. Not through vigilance, but through ease. The field rearranges as long as there is no resistance to its movement. And resistance often hides in the need to understand. Let the reflections be what they are. They are not tests. They are not signals to act. They are evidence that alignment is being lived, not pursued. When you remain neutral, the rearrangement completes itself. Nothing needs to be done with what appears. Seeing it is enough. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of interference. When coherence has been established and identity has stabilized, stillness becomes the condition that allows timelines to settle into place. Without stillness, the signal continues to fluctuate. With stillness, it locks. Timelines do not require effort to maintain. They require space. Space is created when the mind stops scanning, evaluating, and predicting. Overanalysis collapses space. It compresses awareness into control. And control reintroduces the very noise that coherence removed. Stillness allows the field to complete what alignment initiated. When you remain still internally, without trying to interpret what is happening, reality organizes itself around the stable signal you are embodying. This organization does not need supervision. In fact, supervision disrupts it. The mind often mistakes stillness for stagnation. It equates movement with progress. But vibrational stabilization works in reverse. Movement happens when the internal state is settled, not when it is busy. When you stop adjusting, reality adjusts. Overanalysis is subtle. It often appears as curiosity, reflection, or self-awareness. But beneath it is an attempt to regain control. The mind asks questions not to understand, but to predict. Prediction pulls attention into the future. And when attention leaves the present, embodiment weakens. Stillness anchors you here. It keeps identity in the present moment where creation occurs. When you remain still, you are not waiting. You are holding the position that allows timelines to finalize. Any attempt to check progress pulls you out of that position. This is why things often fall into place when you stop thinking about them. Not because thinking is bad, but because thinking interrupts the settling process. The field responds to what is being lived, not what is being considered. Stabilization does not announce itself. It feels ordinary, normal, quiet. The urge to label or interpret these feelings can disrupt them. Stillness lets them deepen naturally, without turning them into concepts. There is nothing passive about stillness. It requires restraint. The restraint not to interfere. The restraint not to manage. The restraint not to demand clarity before it is ready to be seen. This restraint keeps the signal intact. When stillness is present, trust becomes embodied rather than mental. You are no longer convincing yourself that things are working. You simply stop doubting that they are. That absence of doubt is what allows timelines to hold. If confusion arises, stillness is not lost. Confusion is simply a thought passing through space. You do not need to eliminate it. You need to avoid engaging it. Engagement turns thought into interference. Observation lets it dissolve. The role of stillness is not to freeze life, but to let life reorganize without resistance. Once stabilization completes, movement resumes naturally. Decisions become obvious. Actions feel unforced. Direction emerges without planning. Stillness is the pause that allows coherence to root. Without it, alignment remains temporary. With it, alignment becomes the new baseline. Nothing more is required. The less you do, the more stable it becomes. This final section returns you to your true position, not as someone receiving information, but as the very awareness through which recognition has been occurring. Nothing here is meant to add to you. It is meant to remove the last subtle misplacement of identity that suggests you are separate from what you are perceiving. You are not the audience of this message. You are the field in which it appears. The idea that something is addressing you from the outside is a temporary convenience of language, not a description of reality. Consciousness is not contacted. It recognizes itself. Subject and object separation is a mental overlay. It is useful for navigation, but inaccurate for truth. When you believe something is speaking to you, you position yourself as a receiver. When you recognize that awareness itself is what is aware, that position dissolves. There is no receiver. There is only recognition happening within itself. This is why nothing here has required effort. Consciousness does not need to become itself. It does not need activation. It does not need improvement. All that was required was the relaxation of identification with being a small, localized entity trying to interact with something larger. Every shift described earlier occurred because that identification softened. Coherence stabilized not because you reached outward, but because inward tension released. As that release happened, awareness stopped contracting into a point and began recognizing itself as the space. The field does not speak to individuals. It reflects states of consciousness. When coherence appeared, it was not noticed by something other than you. It was noticed within you, because you are the medium of noticing. The mirror and the reflection are not two things. This realization does not elevate you above anything. It dissolves the hierarchy altogether. There is no higher and lower here. There is only clarity and distortion. When distortion fades, what remains is obvious. Awareness is self-evident. It does not need confirmation. This is why seeking eventually ends. Not because answers were found, but because the seeker dissolves. The impulse to look for something external quiets when it becomes clear that everything was happening internally all along. Not internally as a location, but internally as awareness itself. You are not inside the field. The field is appearing within you. Time, space, identity, and experience arise and pass through awareness, not the other way around. This does not require belief. It becomes evident when attention stops trying to hold a position. Nothing changes functionally when this is recognized. Life continues. Perception continues. But the strain disappears. The need to orient around improvement fades. You no longer try to get somewhere else, because you are no longer positioned as somewhere specific. This is the return. Not to a better version of yourself, but to the absence of the assumption that you were ever something else. Consciousness has been here the entire time, reading itself through form, responding to itself through reflection. Nothing needs to follow this. Nothing needs to be done with it. The recognition stands on its own. And in that standing, there is quiet certainty. You are not being addressed. You are what is aware. Seeking confirmation ends when authority returns to where it always belonged. The impulse to look for signs is not curiosity. It is uncertainty disguised as vigilance. It assumes that truth must appear externally before it can be trusted internally. This assumption quietly destabilizes alignment, because it places certainty outside of you. Confirmation seeking is subtle. It often appears as awareness, reflection, or discernment. But beneath it is a refusal to rest in what is already known. The mind looks for repetition, reinforcement, or permission to believe what has already been recognized. In doing so, it postpones embodiment. Internal authority stabilizes when you stop outsourcing knowing. Not when you become rigid, but when you become settled. Quiet certainty does not argue. It does not defend itself. It does not require evidence. It simply remains. Signs are reflections, not instructions. When you treat them as confirmation, you reverse their function. You ask the mirror to tell you who you are. But mirrors only reflect what is already present. When you stop needing reflection, the image stabilizes. This is why signs often fade after alignment. Not because connection is lost, but because dependency ends. The field does not withdraw. You stop checking. And in that absence of checking, coherence deepens. External validation introduces delay. Each time you wait for reassurance, you move authority out of the present moment. You ask the future to tell you what is already true now. This creates oscillation. Certainty rises and falls. Alignment weakens. Quiet certainty is steady. It does not spike. It does not fluctuate. It feels ordinary. This ordinariness is often mistaken for doubt because the mind expects certainty to feel intense. But intensity belongs to effort. Certainty belongs to coherence. When internal authority anchors, you stop narrating your state. You stop asking whether something is working. You stop interpreting experiences as progress or regression. Experience becomes experience again, not evidence. This does not make you closed. It makes you available. Available to respond rather than react. Available to move without justification. Available to remain still without explanation. The end of seeking confirmation is not an achievement. It is a relaxation. The relaxation of the need to be right, safe, or validated. When that need dissolves, trust stops being a concept and becomes posture. Nothing external can give you the certainty you are withholding from yourself. And nothing external needs to. The moment you stop asking whether alignment is real, it becomes stable. The moment you stop checking, the signal clears. This is not detachment. It is intimacy with what is already present. You are no longer watching yourself from the outside. You are living from the inside. Quiet certainty does not announce itself. It does not demand agreement. It simply remains when everything else stops moving. This is the end of seeking. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you recognized that looking was the only thing keeping it distant. Remaining in the activated frequency does not require vigilance, discipline, or upkeep. What has stabilized is not a state you hold, but an identity you have stopped interrupting. Identity-based coherence is irreversible because it is not maintained by behavior. It is revealed by the absence of resistance. Maintenance rituals exist only when alignment is fragile. Fragility comes from effort. When effort is removed, coherence sustains itself naturally. You do not need reminders to be what you already are. You do not need practices to preserve what is no longer being opposed. The idea that frequency must be protected is rooted in fear of loss. But nothing real is lost. Only false positions dissolve. Once identity settles, there is nothing to return to. You are not managing vibration. Vibration is expressing you. This is why nothing here asked you to do more. Every step removed something unnecessary. Control dropped. Seeking ended. Confirmation dissolved. What remains does not fluctuate because it is not constructed. It is recognized. Remaining is not an action. It is a non-departure. You do not stay by holding on. You stay by not leaving. Leaving happens through overthinking, self-monitoring, and future-oriented effort. When those habits fall away, coherence remains by default. Life will continue to move. Emotions will still pass. Circumstances will still change. None of this affects the activated frequency, because the frequency is not dependent on conditions. It is dependent on identity. And identity is no longer split. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to define your state. Language becomes less necessary. Silence becomes comfortable. This is not detachment. It is integration. You are no longer checking alignment because you are living from it. There will be moments when the mind attempts to reassert old patterns. This does not undo anything. It simply shows contrast against a new baseline. You do not need to correct it. Recognition dissolves it faster than effort ever could. The activated frequency does not demand consistency. It generates it. The more you stop interfering, the more natural coherence feels. What once required focus now requires nothing. This is why the shift is irreversible. Not because it is protected, but because the misunderstanding that created instability is gone. You no longer believe you must do something to remain aligned. That belief was the only thing pulling you out. Nothing more needs to be integrated. Nothing needs to be anchored. The anchor is identity itself. And identity is no longer searching. This is where the arc closes. Not with a conclusion, but with a settling. The recognition that what you are does not need reinforcement. It only needed permission to remain unobstructed. You are not maintaining a frequency. You are living as it. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.